back to another episode of Learn Japanese from Some Guy. In today's video, we're going to look at chapter 8 of my textbook, where we will learn to use ni to describe location. A very basic lesson, but very, very important. So, without further ado, hajimarimashou ka. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Alright everyone, here we are, chapter 8, and like I mentioned before, we are going to be learning how to describe locations. So let's get started. In the previous chapter, we saw how to use ni and a to describe the movement or direction of something. Well, in this chapter, we're going to take a little closer look at ni and how to use it to describe locations. So you may have seen in past chapters that on occasion, we use ni to describe where something was located. If you were a little confused or maybe a little curious, here's where you'll find the answers to any questions you may have had. But before we can tackle this particular use of ni, first we need to take a look at the two most important verbs in the Japanese language. Those are iru and aru. So in English, when we want to describe where someone or something is located, we may use sentences like, he is on the table, or the cup is on the table, with no regard to what is actually on the table. But when speaking Japanese, there's a very important distinction between living and non-living things. So in Japanese, the two previous sentences would look something like this. Kare wa teiburu no ue ni iru. Kare wa teiburu no ue ni iru. He is on the table. And we have kappu wa teiburu no ue ni aru. Kappu wa teiburu no ue ni aru. So please notice that in this example, we have iru. So kare wa, he. Kare wa teiburu no ue ni iru. He is on the table. So he is a living animate thing, so we need to use iru to describe his location. And here we have the cup. Kappu wa teiburu no ue ni aru. The cup is on the table. So even though we're describing something that's on the table, we're using two different verbs, aru for the cup, a non-living inanimate object, and iru for kare, a living animate object. So before we move on, let's check out our pro tip at the bottom. So I mentioned before that when we talk about certain things, we need to use iru if it's a living animate thing and aru if it's a non-living inanimate thing. But sometimes there might be a little gray area or a little confusing situation. So for example, what about plants and trees? Certainly they are alive, but they're not animate. So when we're talking about plants and trees, we actually need to use aru to describe their locations. And how about robots and cyborgs? Well, certainly they are animates, but most people would not argue that they are living. So for robots and cyborgs and things like that, we also need to use aru. But how about ghosts? What do we need to use for a ghost? Certainly a ghost is not alive, by definition. But actually, even when we're talking about ghosts, we need to use iru. So these are just kind of some tricky spots that sometimes people ask about that you can just remember. Plants and trees, take aru. Robots, cyborgs, regardless of how real they look, use aru. And ghosts, even though they're dead, not alive, we use iru. Okay, but now let's move back. So we can see that in the first example here, we ended our sentence with iru, and the second sentence, we ended our sentence with aru. Okay, so iru is reserved for living animate objects. Aru is reserved for non-living or inanimate objects. Okay, so when we want to talk about the location of our brother, a dog, or some insect that might be in our house, like the mosquitoes that I sometimes find in mine, we use the word iru. But when we want to talk about something like a rock, our friend's house, our favorite restaurant, or whatever, we use aru. So that's why in the above sentences, when we're talking about he, a living animate object, we use iru. Teiburu no ue ni iru. And when talking about the cup, a non-living inanimate object, we use aru. Kappu wa teiburu no ue ni aru. All right, so now that somewhat lengthy explanation of iru and aru is out of the way, we can begin to focus on the main point of this chapter, and that is using ni to describe location. So the sentence structure we'll be using will look something like this. We have subject wa, location ni iru, or subject wa, location ni aru. And please notice that we have the subject will be underlined in blue, the location with ni is underlined in red, and the verb at the end in purple. So here we have our first example sentence. 彼女は日本にいます。彼女は日本にいます。She is in Japan. And if you're confused by this right here, imas and iru, just know that we'll get into more details about this later, but imas is a conjugated form of the verb iru. So even though it's not written as iru, it's the same. Okay? Number 2, 彼はアメリカにいません。彼はアメリカにいません。He is not in America. So now we have the negative form of iru, which is いません。Number 3, 私の財布は私のポケットの中にあります。私の財布は私のポケットの中にあります。My wallet is in my pockets. My wallet is in my pocket. So please notice here, we have 私のポケットの中. So we practiced using no to describe location, or I'm sorry, to describe possession. So I think this is a really good example right here. So 私のポケット, my pocket, ポケットの中. So this character right here means inside. So we have the inside of pocket of me. So the inside of my pockets is how we would translate that sentence. Number 4, 彼の車はここにありません。彼の車はここにありません。His car is not here. So we have the negative form of ある, ありません. And number 5, 彼の車はあそこにあります。彼の車はあそこにあります。His car is over there. So if you were wondering why instead of using iru and aru, we were using imas and imasen, or arimas and arimasen, the reason is that both iru and aru are verbs that are in their dictionary forms. So imas and arimas are just conjugations of the verb iru and aru, just like how we would say, I am eating, and yesterday I ate. We have to change the tense, the way the verb is conjugated. And here we have the negative forms, so imasen, arimasen, which are just the negative conjugations of iru and aru. So we'll learn more about this in later chapters, but just know for now, that's basically why we're using imas or imasen or arimas or arimasen. They're the conjugated forms of the verbs. But in the meantime, let's look at some practice problems. Fill in the blanks with either imas, imasen, or arimas, arimasen. So we're going to use the English sentence provided as a guide to fill in the blanks. And as always, be sure to write your answers in Hiragana. All right, so here are the first 4. Pause the video, answer those. Okay, and next, 5 and 6. Pause the video. 7, 8, 9, 10. And the last one, number 11. Okay, so pause the video, answer those. All right, so now we're going to check our answers. Number 1, he is in the house. 彼は家にいます。彼は家にいます。So of course we're using imas because the subject, the thing we're talking about, is a living animate object. If you wanted to say 彼は家にいる, that's okay. But imas is just more polite, and we're focusing on using polite Japanese for now. We'll learn how to use more casual conversational Japanese later. So anyway, number 2, the bag is inside the locker. バッグはロッカーの中にあります。バッグはロッカーの中にあります。And of course we use あります, ある, because the bag is a non-living inanimate thing. Number 3, I am not in America. 私はアメリカにいません。私はアメリカにいません。So of course we have not, so we need the negative form, いません, because we're talking about me, a living animate thing. So we need to use いる, and we get いません. Number 4, グランドキャニオンはアリゾナにあります。グランドキャニオンはアリゾナにあります。So of course, あります because the Grand Canyon is a thing. Number 5, the monkey is in the tree. その猿は木にいます。その猿は木にいます。So of course, a monkey is a living animate thing, so we use います. Number 6, the ball is not on the table. ボールはテーブルの上にあります。ボールはテーブルの上にあります。 Okay, and number 7. I am in Japan. 私は日本にいます。私は日本にいます。Number 8. The computer is not in the room. パソコンは部屋にありません。パソコンは部屋にありません。And before looking at number 9, I'd like to take a look at this word right here, パソコン. So if you remember before, I mentioned that oftentimes words written in katakana are derived from other words, usually English words. So can you think of how computer and パソコン are connected? So in Japanese, the full word is actually パーソナルコンピューター。パーソナルコンピューター。So instead of saying personal computer, they say パソコン. So that's why we say computer. パソコン. All right, number 9. He is not in the house. 彼は家にいません。彼は家にいません。He is not in the house. So again, we have the negative form of いる because we're talking about he, a living animate thing. And number 10. My keys are on the table. 私の鍵はテーブルの上にあります。私の鍵はテーブルの上にあります。My keys are on the table. And number 11, where are you? あなたはどこにいますか？あなたはどこにいますか？ Where are you? Alright, so that's going to do it for today. Before we finish, let's take a look at a little summary to recap what we've learned. So first, we learned that in addition to movement and direction, ni is a particle used to mark locations. We also learned that imas and iru are used to describe the location of living, animate things, whereas arimasu and aru are used to describe the location of non-living, inanimate things. Imasen is the polite negative form of iru, and arimasen is the polite negative form of aru. And again, we'll go into more detail in later chapters about this mas, imasen, arimasen form. And also, we also learned that plants, flowers, robots, and things like that all take aru, even though plants are alive and robots are animate. And finally, ghosts are described with iru. Even though they're animate, or even though they're dead, we describe them with iru. All right, so let's see next time. We don't really have a chapter where we're going to learn something specifically about grammar, but I'm going to talk a little bit about Japanese verbs. It's a short chapter, really short video, but very, very important, so be sure to check that out, and we'll see you next time. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's chapter. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe if you wish to get updated on when future videos are released. Also, if you wish to support this series, or you're just so motivated you can't wait for that next video to come out, my book is available for purchase on Amazon, the link for which will be in the description box below. As always, your comments and reviews are greatly appreciated, so be sure to let me know what you think. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Mata ne!